This series of 3 chats, this is the third, is with the past employees of Polymetrics, one of the legacy OEMs in the business. And this is chat group 30. With me today, I have Mr. Jim Sleigh, Mr. Mike Nelson, Mr. Walter Hayden.
The biggest story I can remember from when we were there is back then the cellulose acetate membranes were very expensive and also only 4-inch. And there was only like 1 or 2 leaves in them, as I remember. And 2 leaves, yeah. And I hadn't been there very long, and it was February, March, and they brought one of the membranes in, and they would always dye test them with this purple dye, and then if they had failed, they would then destructively tear them apart. So we had one rolled out in the park, literally in the parking lot, because that was the only place big enough. And you see all this green slime on the top, and everybody stands around very knowingly. Yep, algae fouling again. So, and I was thinking, first it's February, and second, I think that's a well water. And I took some samples of it and had analyzed. It was almost pure iron oxide. But the cartridge filters were completely clean. And it turned out the pump, that was a cast iron pump with the spider bearings, and they were adding the acid right in front of the pump and just dissolving the pump off into the membrane. And the purple dye was reacting with the iron and forming a green color.
They had a line of packaged units, standard units, and there were some problems with the controls in them. They generally worked okay, but they just had some minor problems in one sort or another. I recall one problem was the control panel. There was a disconnect switch inside with a handle on the front where you would open and close the switch, and that handle wasn't very suitable for the application, and often a lot of water would leak in around the handle, and sometimes the handle would be totally removed by the operator, and people would reach in and turn the thing on and off. So that was one thing to try to fix, try to come up with a better design.
So what was the first big, and in those days big was 500,000 gallons a day, what was the first big municipal project that you did?
Sarasota.
City of Sarasota?
Yeah. And that's how I came to Polymetrics.
Yeah. With Sarasota?
Yes.
You worked on that project?
Yes.
And that was B9s?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
And has been totally rebuilt since then.
I would imagine.
Oh, probably, yeah.
And it's now a spiral plane. After that, you did...
Yanbu was the next.
Yanbu was the next one?
Yep.
And that was one of the first big seawater plants, right?
That wasn't that large. It wasn't that large.
But for seawater it was...
At the time, it was pretty. It was supposed to be 5,000 cubic meters a day or something. Yeah.
And what did you learn from Yanbu?
Drill the wells first.
You can't desalt 78,000 TDS water very well, or 60,000 TDS water, whatever it was.
Yeah, that was. We were about a quarter mile inland where we drilled the wells, and I think they came in around 55,000 is my recollection. So instead of being 5,000, it was 3,000. We had to really cut the recovery back and stuff. Mm-hmm. So
what sort of recoveries did you use in those days?
Oh, it probably started out at
20% or something.
Yeah, I think by the time we were done, it was down around 20.
20%?
I think it was 35 by design, but by the time we were done, it was not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had a fair amount of trouble with corrosion of the well pumps, at least early on. There were submersible pumps, and they corroded away pretty rapidly.
Corrosion of everything there, piping.
Yeah, actually, I thought I was only going over for 2 weeks for the O&M, set up part of the O&M, and as I was on the flight over, the project manager, I got thrown out of the country, and I was the only one with a visa, so I ended up, 5 months instead of 2 weeks. So
I remember one time, this was at Malta. In the early 80s, we did this project in Malta, seawater plant. When you came down the only road access to it, you kind of came down this hill, and you could see down below the plant, which was built near the water, but up on some high cliffs above the water. And they had a well field and had a break tank for the feed water, and then there were pumps that pumped that under 70 or 80 psi into the cartridge filter system, and then into the membrane, the pumps for the membrane. Anyway, the line between the brake tank and the pumping system related and the main plant was kind of above grade, or right at grade anyway. And one day I remember coming down the hill, and there was this massive fountain where the line had popped. It was about a 30-inch fiberglass line, and it was shooting. It was one of those nice big leaks that often happened in these seawater plants.
So then after DVT, then came Aqua Design. And that was one of probably the first, if not the first, boot-oriented RO companies.
Yep.
And what motivated that move? Go from building plants to selling water?
I think a part of it was just being at the right place at the right time. We gotten the experience at Polymetrics and various things, but there were a number of people that were selling seawater plants to hotels and stuff in the Caribbean, and a lot of them weren't working, and so that gave us so it put the hotels in a position where they didn't want to have the risk of buying this thing, and so we were able to just say we'll take all the risk and we'll sell the water, and you just pay for the water, and we were just in the right place at the right time, and could do it. That was it.
I think the hotel management, if they can get rid of any technical issues in their life, they're happy to turn those over to others. They're more people than.
And then your financing came from Mitsui, so that's when you got started using spiral membranes.
On the big, that's when we started with Toray. Because Mitsui was the Toray, rep in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
I have one story about Malta. We bid Malta, and I worked on the proposal for Malta and the cost estimating and so on, and we got the contract. And I was home, I think it was right around Christmas, and someone called me and said, we get on a plane and go to Malta for a couple of days, a week or so. We got the contract, we're going to go over there. So I go over there and landed and went out to the site, and Bill Andrews is there, and Mike Bachman. And Bill Andrews and Mike Bachman said, we're going to put the plant right here on this site and so on. It's going to be dump, and dump, dump, dump. And they left. And there I was for 3 months.
I don't remember, the projects really don't stand out. It's all the experiences with the people on the sites and things it's all the stories that I remember. Right? It's not the technology, not the projects that I really remember.
Yeah. Walt?
Well, I recall at Malta, we had power coming into the plant was 11 kV feed, 50 hertz system, of course. And the Malta, which was the power company, only had they had some feeders out in that part of the island, but none of them, no one of them had enough capacity to run the plant. So they said, well, we'll give you 2 feeders. And so you need to set up with 2 incoming lines. You'll have to load both of them. You can't just use one or the other. So fortunately, we were working with a British electrical engineer, John Whiteley, who was very skilled and had a lot of third world experience. So he said, okay, what we need is a serious tap switch automatic tap switch on the primary side of this transformer. And he was certainly right. I think it would go plus 5% to minus 20% voltage. It would compensate over that range. And we were often at minus 10 or minus 15% for the compensation. I mean, where as you loaded the thing up, the feeder would get lower and lower and lower. But we were able to extract enough power from it and keep the 6 kV distribution within the plant at 6 kV, and that was good. And quite often we'd go to the plant and one of the feeders would be lost. I mean, this was just a routine thing. And when you went to their power plant, which was on the other side of the island, and looked through what was going on in there, you could understand why they had struggles. I mean, they did have struggles.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming.